Good evening. We're back with more Marvel Champions, and this evening will be a deck spotlight and buying guide for the Scarlet Witch deck that has been featured in the last couple of videos. So Leadership Scarlet Witch deck, I do think that generally either Leadership or Protection are the best aspects for solo play, depending on which aspect the hero can take advantage of the most. For heroes that don't take advantage of any aspect in particular, I will almost always go with Leadership. Protection usually will be the 3 defense heroes or the heroes who have 2 defense but additional defensive abilities such as Shadowcat. Scarlet Witch is a decent hero, but she is limited by her resource generation, which is limited. Let's take a look at her kit. So, unlike Nova, who had very strong resource generation with his Supernova helmet but was somewhat limited by his events, Scarlet Witch has decent value events, but her resource generation is inconsistent at best. It's limited to Chaos Magic, which has very strong resource generation but is only 1 card in 40, and it is an event. And then Hexbolt, which can draw cards, but not always. And that's it for resource generation. She doesn't have the typical resource generator that most heroes get. All she's got is Hexbolt and Chaos Magic. And then to round out her kit, she's got Molecular Decay and a couple of utility cards in Warp Reality and Magic Shield, and Scarlet Witch's Crest, which gives you a little bit of control over the large amount of RNG in her kit. So no matter which aspect you play, I would not expect Scarlet Witch's ceiling to be very high because her resource generation is so limited. And because it's limited, that makes Sorcerer Supreme an extremely important card in her kit. Sorcerer Supreme, an upgrade which comes in the Doctor Strange hero pack and is playable only if you have the Mystic trait, and it gives your hero +1 hand size. I cannot overstate how important that card is to heroes that have the Mystic trait. In my Heroic 1 Rhino playthrough with Scarlet Witch, I drew Sorcerer Supreme in the opening hand. That hero or that scenario would have been much more difficult to defeat had I not drawn Sorcerer Supreme in the opening hand. It's a very important card because it gives her +1 resource every round, and if we could guarantee that would be in the opening hand every time, that would change the equation on Scarlet Witch, but of course we can't. The best heroes in the game tend to be heroes that come with resource generation built into their hero card, because then you don't have to rely on drawing it from the deck. You just get it from turn 1. That's not Scarlet Witch. Her resource generation is inconsistent at best. Her events are okay but not overpowered, and her defensive abilities are not great, limited pretty much to Magic Shield, which isn't that efficient. In fact, it isn't really efficient at all. So she did well enough to defeat Rhino on Heroic 1, mostly because of drawing Sorcerer Supreme in the opening hand. I wouldn't say it was anything in particular that this deck did exceptionally well or that her hero kit does exceptionally well. It's because Sorcerer Supreme is really, really good, and we drew it in the opening hand. So if you pick up Scarlet Witch, expect for her to be a fun hero with a lot of RNG and a lot of decision making, but not a hero with a very high ceiling in terms of the difficulty of the scenarios she can beat in solo mode. And there's nothing in her kit that really benefits from multiplayer either, so I wouldn't expect that equation to change much in multiplayer, except that her weaknesses could get covered up by or obfuscated by by your teammates all doing their individual things, and in a multiplayer comp it can be harder to identify which heroes are strong and which are not. But as in solo, there's no disguising it. Scarlet Witch is above average, but not that good. and really the only reason that she is above average at all is her access to Sorcerer Supreme. Though Sorcerer Supreme is not a, well, it's not, it doesn't guarantee that the hero is going to be good just because they can use Sorcerer Supreme. Adam Warlock can use Sorcerer Supreme, and he's, in my opinion, not as good as Scarlet Witch for solo play because he's very slow to get set up and his stats are weak. And he requires you to discard a card in order to take advantage of his hero ability. But anyway, the hero packs that are needed to make this deck are similar to the Nova deck. Black Widow for rapid response, Wasp for Ironheart, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and the power in all of us. Then we have Mad Titan Shadow for summoning spell, White Tiger and Kalu. White Tiger and Kalu are extremely important cards for any leadership deck, White Tiger in particular, especially on higher difficulties. On expert difficulty, White Tiger is guaranteed to draw at least 2 cards, and possibly 3. And Summoning Spell is a very good card for a Mystic deck. You can only play it if your identity has the Mystic trait. You discard cards from the top of your deck until you discard an ally, which means you could get a big ally like Spider-Man or Nick Fury or Beast, or you could get a smaller one. You can't take advantage of White Tiger's ability if she is brought into play by Summoning Spell because she requires that she be played from your hand in order to do that. But Summoning Spell is a nice addition to the deck, and since any serious leadership player is probably going to have Mad Titan Shadow anyway, definitely want to include Summoning Spell in any leadership deck where you're running a Mystic hero. Then we have Doctor Strange for Sorcerer Supreme, an extremely important card to this deck. Quicksilver for United We Stand. United We Stand is a nice card that I like a lot for decks that have the Avengers trait. It allows you to heal 1 damage from up to X friendly characters to a maximum of 3, where X is equal to the villain's stage number. I don't know if I liked that card a lot the first time that I saw it, but having played it more, I like it a lot. It's very high value because when you heal 1 damage off of an ally, you get at least 2 value out of it, typically 2 attack or 2 thwart. And then if all you can do is also heal 1 damage off of your hero, that's 3 in value for 0 cost. That's strong. If you can heal 2 allies and get 4 attack or 4 thwart total, that's quite good. I like United We Stand. I think it's the best event in the leadership aspect currently. It comes in the Quicksilver hero pack. It is not essential to this deck. You can easily get away with not running United We Stand and running 3 other cards of your choice. You could get away with, as usual, not running the trifecta from the Wasp hero pack. Rapid Response from Black Widow isn't as necessary to this deck as it was to Nova or is to some other decks. Sorcerer Supreme is absolutely essential though for Scarlet Witch, and I would call White Tiger and Kalu essential for any leadership deck. And then we also have Beast from the Cyclops hero pack. Beast is a ally that I like quite a lot and will likely get included in every leadership deck that I make. Unfortunately, Cyclops' hero kit is not that good, but Beast is so good that he gives a reason to buy the Cyclops hero pack. Doesn't even really matter if you're running an X-Men deck or not. Beast doesn't require that you do so. He is very strong and works with things like Rapid Response or even Regroup. So that is a total of 6 hero packs: Black Widow, Wasp, Doctor Strange, Quicksilver, Cyclops, and the Scarlet Witch hero pack, plus the Mad Titan Shadow expansion, plus the core set, which are needed to build this deck, a total cost of $141. If you had already built the Nova deck, the only additional hero pack you would need, well, you'd need 2 additional, Doctor Strange and Quicksilver. Of course, Doctor Strange is a very strong hero in his own right. Quicksilver is not, and I would suggest that United We Stand is the most replaceable of the cards in this deck, and really 3 cards of your choosing can slot in here just fine without much reduction in power, if any. So that's Scarlet Witch, an above average hero, not as good as Nova, and nothing exceptional. I would not expect to defeat the most difficult scenarios in the game with her. I would expect to have some fun, be able to make strong contributions to a multiplayer group, and be able to do some things in solo, but not a lot. Rhino Heroic 1 is about her ceiling. So, thank you for watching. Now, switching over to compare side by side the Mighty Avengers deck with the standard leadership Scarlet Witch deck. The Mighty Avengers deck needs Captain America from Mad Titan's Shadow, Captain Marvel from War Machine, Falcon from Captain America, Giant Man from Ant-Man, and Goliath from Rise of Red Skull, along with Hawkeye and Stinger from Ant-Man. So there are significant changes between the two, and if you were only going to choose one or the other to build, I would choose the leadership Scarlet Witch list from the left side to build, because I think that the leadership cards used in that deck are going to be more universal. They're going to be used in more heroes leadership decks, whereas the Avengers cards will only be used in the Scarlet Witch or in the heroes who have the Avengers trait. And then, well, in terms of future-proofing the decks, I don't see the Avengers synergy getting developed that much more. I don't think that there are any cards that will come out, at least it doesn't seem that there will be any more cards that will develop the Avengers synergy, because it's been quite a long time since any cards came out that advanced the Avengers synergy. So essentially, I think that the Mighty Avengers deck is as good as it's going to get, and I do believe it's a little bit better than the leadership deck on the left, the standard leadership deck, but not a lot better, and probably not worth picking up all of those hero packs just to build it, because the list on the left is going to continue to get better as more leadership allies come out that will become standard in leadership decks because of their strength. One example of a relatively recent ally that came out that has become standard in my leadership decks is Beast. There will be more allies like him that will emerge in the next cycle, probably. That will improve the leadership Scarlet Witch deck on the left, but not the one on the right unless they also happen to be Avengers. But that seems unlikely since the cycle is dedicated to the X-Force. So, Mighty Avengers is a lot of fun. It's very powerful, especially in multiplayer when you get a little bit more time to set it up. And you can have teammates cover you while you get out Mighty Avengers in team training. Once you get out Mighty Avengers in team training, if you're still in decent shape, the deck is virtually unstoppable. The leadership deck on the left is a little bit better in the early game, and so it really depends on the scenario which one is better. I think on average the Mighty Avengers is a little bit better. Nonetheless, I would not recommend picking up all of the hero packs to get it unless the idea of the deck really appeals to you, because I don't think that the deck on the right is ever going to get much better than it is right now, and the deck on the left will get better as more allies come out that we will want to add. In terms of the other aspects, there's no aspect in particular that Scarlet Witch uses well or any worse than the others. So we just go with whatever aspect you believe is the strongest when building Scarlet Witch, or whatever aspect your team composition needs. So that is our Scarlet Witch Hero Spotlight and Buying Guide. And thank you for watching.